Michael Jones, a powerful CEO, walks into his own bank disguised as a regular customer, only to face the prejudice he fought to overcome all his life. What happens when a man of success is denied service by the very system he created? Stick around to find out, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to know. The sun pierced through the tall glass windows of the bank's main entrance, reflecting off the marble floors in sharp golden shards. Michael Jones stood in the doorway, his figure framed by the grandeur of an institution he had spent years building. Yet today he was not Michael Jones, the renowned CEO. He was just another man in a worn leather jacket and jeans, blending in like any other customer. The muted chatter of clients echoed off the high ceilings, interspersed with the rhythmic tapping of keyboards. It was a world he knew inside out, but from this perspective it seemed foreign. Indifferent, he inhaled deeply, letting the sterile air fill his lungs. Beneath his composed exterior, tension simmered. It wasn't the fear of being recognized that unsettled him, it was the memories this moment stirred. He thought back to his youth, to the days when banks were cold, hostile fortresses that denied people like him even the smallest dignity. A sharp metallic voice broke his next the cashier barked, her eyes already skipping past him to another customer. Michael stepped forward, yet her gaze didn't shift. He waited a moment, then cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said softly but firmly. She barely glanced up. "I'll be right with you," she said, her tone dismissive. Michael clenched his jaw but smiled thinly. "Be patient, observe, learn." His mantra echoed in his mind like a distant drum. He noticed the side glances, how other customers dressed in bus business attire moved through the line with ease he had always known, but now he would see it firsthand. "I'm here for something more than a withdrawal today," he thought. "I'm here for the truth." The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting a cold bluish hue over the teller desks. Michael leaned against the counter, his calm mask still intact. Minutes passed, but the teller seemed more interested in rearranging her paperwork than helping him. Finally she signaled toward a tall, broad-shouldered man in a gray suit who was approaching from the office area. The man's polished shoes echoed ominously across the tiled floor. "John Patterson, branch manager," the man announced, extending a hand with the stiffness of someone who didn't really want it to be shaken. Michael took the hand firmly. "Michael Jones, I'm here to withdraw funds from my account." Patterson gave him a once-over, eyes narrowing at the casual attire, the absence of a business briefcase, the lack of the right look. His lips curled slightly in amusement, as if this were a joke. "Funds? May I ask how much you're looking to withdraw?" Michael remained calm. $40,000. The smirk vanished. Patterson's hardened. "$40,000. We'll need to verify everything thoroughly. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Jones, requests of that size are unusual for whom?" Michael asked quietly, his voice steady but pointed. Patterson crossed his arms. "Just following protocol. We've had some incidents." Michael took a breath. He had expected resistance, but the thinly veiled suspicion stung more than he had anticipated. Patterson turned to a nearby security guard and gave a subtle nod. "Wait here, I'll be back after we run some checks," Patterson said, his tone now opened, distrustful. As Patterson walked away, Michael exhaled slowly. This wasn't just about protocol. It never had been. Michael sat in a cold, rigid chair near the corner of the lobby, his fingers resting lightly on his knees. The bank had returned to its regular hum of quiet transactions, but he was now under a subtle microscope. Customers whispered as they passed by. Employees exchanged glances filled with unspoken judgment. He could feel the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on him. The irony wasn't lost. He was surrounded by the very structure he had built, and yet in their eyes he was a stranger. He heard Patterson's voice barking orders from behind a glass door, talking about verifications and security risks. Michael closed his eyes, momentarily grounding himself. Images of his younger self surfaced: a teenager standing outside a bank branch in his old neighborhood, being told he couldn't open an account because of sufficient documentation. He had promised himself then that he would change that system someday, but here he was again facing the same walls of prejudice. "Excuse me, sir," a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. He looked up to see a young teller nervously holding a clipboard. "Would you like some water while you wait?" Michael studied her face. Unlike Patterson, she seemed rather than condescending. He offered a gentle nod. "That would be nice, thank you." As she walked away, the entrance doors swung open. Sarah Collins, the regional director, strode in her heels, clicking assertively against the floor. Her presence commanded immediate attention. She was a tall woman with sharp features and a confident grace, wearing a navy blazer that marked her authority. Several employees straightened in their seats, their casual conversations abruptly ceasing. "Good afternoon," Sarah greeted the receptionist. "I'm here for a scheduled inspection. Is Patterson around?" The receptionist hesitated before pointing toward the manager's office. Sarah's eyes scanned the room, pausing when they met Michael's. She blinked, recognition dawning. In an instant her demeanor softened. She walked briskly over to him. "Michael, what are you doing here?" she asked, lowering her voice as she leaned slightly closer. Michael gave her a faint smile, testing. "The water seems a bit colder than I expected." Sarah frowned, glancing toward Patterson's office. "Cold is an understatement. What happened?" "Let's just say I've experienced some interesting customer service today. Patterson doesn't seem too fond of large withdrawals from certain customers." Sarah's jaw tightened. She didn't need more details to understand the lines were already drawn. She straightened and gestured toward the manager's office. "Come with me," she said firmly. The walk across the lobby felt like a slow march to judgment. Employees watched with widened eyes as Sarah led Michael through the doors marked manager office. Patterson was seated at his desk, reviewing paperwork. He barely looked up until Sarah's voice cut through the room. "John, could you explain what's going on here?" Patterson looked between Sarah and Michael, confusion giving way to alarm. He stood abruptly. I was just following standard procedures. Mr. Jones made a large withdrawal request and I needed to ensure everything was verified." "Did you?" Now Sarah crossed her arms. "And at what point were you going to tell me that you were holding up the CEO of this bank?" Patterson's face paled. He stammered incoherently, his earlier confidence crumbling. "Key CEO, I wasn't aware." Michael finally spoke, his tone calm but unyielding. "No, you weren't, and that's exactly the problem, John. You didn't see a client today. You saw a threat. You assumed based on how I looked, didn't you?" That wasn't my intention," Patterson muttered, his gaze dropping to the floor. "It may not have been your intention, but it was your impact," Michael replied, letting the silence that followed speak louder than any reprimand. Sarah stepped in. "This isn't just about today. We've had other reports about behavior like this. Michael's presence exposed something we can't ignore any longer." Patterson sank into his chair, visibly deflated. Michael exhaled slowly. He wasn't here to destroy anyone's career, but there were lessons that needed to be learned, lessons he had been forced to learn the hard way. "I believe in accountability," Michael said, "but I also believe in change. This is an opportunity for you, John, if you're willing to confront your biases and grow from them." Patterson nodded numbly. The room fell into a heavy, contemplative silence. Sarah broke it. "Let's talk next steps. This isn't just about one branch anymore." As they exited the office, Michael caught sight of the young teller who had offered him water earlier. She gave him a hesitant smile. He returned it, knowing that real change started with moments like these, small significant shifts in how people saw one another. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense, weighed down by unspoken realizations. Michael stood by the window, looking out at the busy street below. His reflection in the glass seemed distant, as if watching the scene unfold from another world behind him. Patterson fidgeted in his chair while Sarah prepared her notes. The other department heads connected via video call, their faces a mixture of curiosity and unease. "Let's get to the heart of this," Michael began, his voice steady but firm. "What happened today was not an isolated event. It's a symptom of something much deeper in our organization." Patterson shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Jones, please let me finish," Michael said, raising a hand. "For too long we've allowed unconscious biases to dictate how we treat people. What I experienced today wasn't just about me. How many other clients have walked through our doors and faced the same silent wall of suspicion?" Sarah stepped in, her tone measured. "We've had reports from other branches about similar behavior. This isn't just about one bad day. We need systemic change." The room grew quieter. Patterson rubbed his temples, visibly grappling with his own defensiveness. "I thought I was following protocol, but maybe I wasn't seeing the bigger picture." Michael turned to face him directly. "That's the point. Protocol shouldn't be a weapon to dehumanize people. It should serve to protect and empower them." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. The weight of his message was palpable, each person in the room reflecting on their role in maintaining the status quo. "We're going to implement a comprehensive training program," Michael continued, "not just a few sessions on diversity, but an overhaul of how we engage with clients. Empathy, respect, and trust need to be at the core of our operations." Patterson nodded slowly. "I understand, and I want to do better." Michael gave a short nod. "That's what I expect from everyone here. We're in a position of power. It's our responsibility to lead by example." The meeting concluded with a renewed sense of purpose. As Michael walked out of the room, he felt a quiet resolve settling within him. Change was never easy, but today a crucial step had been taken. The evening air was crisp as Michael stepped out of the bank's main entrance. The towering glass facade reflected the fading sunset, casting an orange glow that softened the imposing structure. For a moment he stood still, letting the cool breeze wash over him. The events of the day replayed in his mind, the looks of suspicion, the dismissive tone, Patterson's breakdown of excuses. It was an exhausting cycle he had seen too many times before, yet this time something felt different. He hadn't exploded in anger, hadn't made a spectacle. He had taken control of the narrative and planted seeds of reflection in the minds of those around him. Sometimes the path to the change wasn't loud and destructive, it was deliberate and measured. His phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. The first phase of the training initiative was already being rolled out. He smiled faintly, knowing that the work had just begun, but for now he allowed himself a brief moment of peace. Michael turned toward his car, the street lights flickering on as night fell. In the distance he saw people entering and exiting other banks, ordinary customers just like he had been. Today he silently hoped their experiences would soon be better than his had been. Have you ever experienced something like this? Moments when you were judged by your appearance or denied fair treatment? Share your story in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Together we can shed light on these issues and inspire change. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Your support helps us continue spreading awareness and hope.